My husband expects me to finance his side of the family story. I, female 32, recently inherited a good amount of money from my mom. I keep the money in a separate account, as I still haven't decided what to do with it, and I didn't want it to go to waste. I noticed my husband constantly bringing up the inheritance money and making countless suggestions as to how I should spend it. Another thing is that he expects me to pay for nearly everything in the past couple of weeks. For NYE, my husband and I met up with his family at a restaurant to celebrate. It was going fine until I found out that I was expected to pay for everyone at the table. My husband's mom joked about paying for dinner out of my inheritance pocket, which made me livid, but I showed no reaction, just silently paid for my own food drinks, then got up and made my way out of the restaurant. They were shouting after me like a crowd, and my husband tried to get me to come back, but I drove home. He got back at 3 a.m., yelling at me saying I was pathetic to get up and walk out on him and his family after they relied on me to pay for their food and thought I was gracious enough to do it. But they were wrong. He said I humiliated him and his family, and that what I did was an attempt to get back at them for not being able to help mom when she was sick. Not true, is all I'm gonna say. He is mad and is saying that I caused a huge rift between his family and me when it wouldn't have hurt me to pay for the celebratory dinner. Am I in the wrong? Response 1. So let me get this straight. Your mother died after an illness, and the thing your in-laws take from this is great. Now she can pay for everything. Yeah, not the a-hole. Reply 1. This not the a-hole. I'd tell your husband you'd much rather your mother around than the money, but him and his family trying to blindside you into spending it on them is disgusting. That you plan on taking your time to decide what you want to do with that money and don't want anything like this to occur again. Reply 2. A divorce attorney may be a wise investment since hubby showed his true colors. Instead of suggesting they spend the money on buying a house or rental property or put it away for retirement, he wants her to blow the money away ever since she got it. Good for her to keep it separate and talk to a financial advisor and maybe a divorce or probate attorney so that the inheritance is properly kept as a separate asset and not commingled into marital property. Reply 3. Oh, it gets better. It seems like they didn't help OP whilst her mother was sick, but now they want to spend her mom's money. OP needs to get a lawyer, check her financial status, then get a divorce lawyer, and run for the hills from these grasping ghouls. Her husband and his family clearly want to get their sticky paws on her inheritance. Not the a-hole. Reply 4. When my mom passed at an obscenely early age from cancer, she was 68, I was 28. The condo we had bought about 6 months earlier became mine. She also left me a considerable amount of cash. I know in my heart my mom was comforted knowing she didn't have to worry about what would happen to me when she was gone. One of my crass relatives, her niece, commented on what she had left me. My response, I'd rather have my mother back and be living in a cardboard box on the street. Response 2, not the a-hole, but please see a lawyer ASAP. After this trick, your husband is likely to divorce you to go after your inheritance. Make sure your affairs are legally airtight so he can't touch it. Reply 1. Inheritance isn't typically considered a marital asset. The husband will not benefit by divorcing OP. No matter how you look at it, he's not entitled to it. Reply 2. Anytime I hear about a married couple with separate bank accounts, I assume they're doomed. My wife and I joined our accounts before our wedding. We were engaged for a while, and we consider that the day we got married. Reply 3. Depends. If you get married young and you have similar assets and income, why not? If you get married later in life and one partner has substantially more assets, they are taking a risk. I have a dear but silly friend who always went the joint account route. He's been divorced 3 times. He refers to himself as Mr. 1/8. At least he didn't lose his sense of humor. Reply 4. Leap there. For some, it's easier to keep it separate and delegate expenses. For example, me and my wife. I make the most so rent, bills, and groceries are on me. My wife's income is savings, vacations, and fun. This works because I like to spend money on myself, so this keeps us in check and we are extremely financially stable. TBH, I don't see the benefits of having a joint account anyway, since we can just talk to each other about expenses when needed. There is never an argument about it. Response 3. Not the a-hole. No one ever has the right to expect someone else to pick up the tab, especially if it wasn't agreed to up front. This causes 2 problems. Let's say for argument's sake that you wanted to treat. but their expectation/demand of you treating literally robs you of the joy of picking up the tab. No one likes being forced. Say you begrudgingly just paid. Now you're setting a precedent of constantly being used, and they will expect you to be the family piggy bank. Your inheritance is no one's business. You don't owe anyone anything. Your husband and in-laws are shameful. Reply 1. That's assuming you even had the means to pay it anyway. It is safely away in a savings account. I don't have X amount of money in my checking to make up for that. Reply 2. I would never expect my wife to use her inheritance from a family passing for anything other than what she wanted, beyond drug binges or huge bad decisions that could affect us both. But I could only voice my opinion. It blows my mind people act like this. Reply 3. This honestly reminds me of some shit my ex pulled once. We went to Buffalo Wild Wings to hang out with some friends and watch football before we went to the movies for date night. I ordered 1 beer and some chicken strip/fries. My ex had several beers and 2 appetizers, then ate most of my fries. Check came and he started flipping out over the total, acting like I ran up the bill with all the things I ordered. I pulled out server aside, I paid for my 2 items, and then left. The relationship was already shitty, but it didn't last long after that. Reply 4. I was given 2 great pieces of advice that I still go by today. 1. Always be prepared to pay for your meal, no matter the circumstances. There's always the possibility of something going wrong. 2. Order as you would if you were paying for yourself, even though, especially with business-focused means, that people will tend to order the most expensive meals they can. You never know what will happen. Reply 5. I 100% agree with your sentiment here. I'm not rich by any means, but I'm doing pretty well for myself. Every dinner I was invited to with my mother-in-law, father-in-law, brother-in-law, and his girlfriend, I would always offer to pay, and quite a few times went up the waiter privately to do so because my father-in-law constantly pushed back on this. I got fed up around the time my mother-in-law and brother-in-law started expecting this to be the norm all the time and complaining to my wife that I was cheap if I didn't pay one time. Joke's on them now. Because of that attitude, I only pay for my wife and me now. Response 4. Not the a-hole. It is time to speak to a good lawyer and get that money into some type of trust that he cannot touch in the event of divorce. Simply having it in a separate bank account is not sufficient to protect it in a divorce settlement. His behavior is not healthy or supportive, and it seems like he and his family seem entitled to your inheritance. This is not a good situation. I hope you can work through this, but still protect your money just in case. Reply 1. Sage advice. Do not pay for anything jointly owned with inheritance. Your husband and his family are showing their true colors. I doubt they will stop thinking about how to spend your money. Put it in trust and invest for your future, not theirs. Reply 2. I have no idea what country OP is from, but in most, if not all, Western countries, this is her separate property, and the husband is not going to be awarded it or any part of the inheritance in a divorce under any circumstances. Keeping it a separate account, which the husband cannot access, is likely sufficient protection. Response 5. Not the a-hole. And OMFG, your husband and ILs are such a-holes. Inheritance is not your husband's. Full stop. He is an a-hole for trying to get so involved in how you spend it. Inheritance is certainly not your ILs. Full stop. They should keep their mouths shut. You are grieving and only have an inheritance because your mother died. I bet you would gladly give the money back if it meant having your mom back. When you are grieving, anyone acting remotely excited about spending your inheritance basically risks coming across as a heartless a-hole. Hooray, we have money to spend because your loved one died. Yay for me. They are all insensitive a-holes for acting like this. Who relies on someone else to pay for anything, from inheritance or other money, without that being agreed upon beforehand? Either they are ridiculously entitled, or your husband told them you would so they expected it, or possibly both. A-holes all around. I think you handled this very well. You could have caused a scene. Instead, you quietly left. Contact a lawyer and make sure your inheritance and other assets are protected from your husband, and consider whether this is a relationship shop worth keeping. Reply 1. I'm with this respondent, not the a-hole, and you need both a lawyer and a reevaluation of your marriage, perhaps a marriage counselor or a divorce attorney. Behavior like this is almost never isolated and unique. Very sorry for your loss and for the terrible place your husband has put you in. Reply 2. And for me, if they were relying on OP to pay for it, That implies they bought more than they normally would have, and outside of their own means, which is an a-hole move in itself, let alone if the person you are expecting to pay for it isn't even aware, consenting of that fact. Jesus. Reply 3. The only quibble I would have is with number 1, at least in a healthy marriage with a considerate partner. Just like any other major decision, I would expect a healthy couple to discuss these things together. It's not inherently wrong for the husband to make suggestions, but he needs to pay attention to his spouse and realize he's making them uncomfortable. I would hope all of these suggestions benefit his spouse, but from the tone deafness he seems to be displaying, I bet they don't. But I feel for the op, since he and his family are acting more like she won the lottery instead of a very bittersweet inheritance. Reply 4. Number 1 is flat out bullshit in a marriage. I wouldn't imagine ring fencing any income from her, no matter how I attained it. Everyone sucks here. Reply 5. I had the same reaction. Any income my wife and I receive, regardless of the source, is treated as our money. Fortunately, all 4 of our parents are still here, but I can tell you, any inheritance from either would be seen as our inheritance. I won 4 CALs on the Super Bowl last year, and we each took 2 CAL and used it for our own personal spending. I could have said it was my money that I won, but I don't see marriage that way. Reply 6. A quick note to provide more context. In most states, an inheritance to one spouse is considered the separate property of that spouse and not marital property, even if received during the marriage. That status may change depending on various factors, but there is definitely a basis for saying it's the receiving spouse's property. The receiving spouse can choose to bring their spouse into the decision-making process for what to do with the inheritance. And in a healthy marriage, I would say that's the norm, but there is no obligation to do so. And OP's spouse here is, as another commenter said, a buffoon. He's been disrespectful to OP and acted like an entitled a-hole. So I can totally see not involving him, and honestly, with the behavior described here, I'd seriously consider divorce. Response 6. My condolences, OP, for the loss of your mother and having an asshole for a husband. Not the a-hole. Reply 1. Maybe we can soon congratulate her on the loss of her husband. Reply 2. I came to say the same thing. I'm so sorry for your loss, OP, and that it has revealed such a terrible side to your husband and his family. On top of the pain of losing your mom, this must be unbearably hard. I lost my mom several years ago. I'd been with my husband nearly a decade by then, and he never once asked me to pay for anything or suggested what I should do with it. I knew I'd be putting it into a home for us, but there was never any pressure or expectation from him. His family was never aware that I inherited anything. They probably realized when we bought a house, but it never came up. The fact that they are treating the death of your mother as some kind of lucky windfall makes me feel sick for you. I hope you can get out of this marriage with your inheritance intact, depending on where you live. I wouldn't give those entitled arseholes a single penny. Response 7. Not the a-hole. Your husband and in-laws are attempting to capitalize on your mother's death. Keep the inheritance. Ditch the people who think you're a walking ATM. Reply 1. I don't understand families like this. My parents each had a parent die within 5 weeks of the other, and they both said to each other that it's their money, so they won't tell the other what to do with it. Reply 2. Do you know what my husband wants to do with my inheritance when I unfortunately get it in a few years? Pay off a few mutual debts of ours to make our quality of life better, set up a university college fund for our soon-to-be daughter, and stash away the rest. Maybe we will look into investing a bit. My husband 100% agrees that it's mine to do with what I want, which is how it'll be used. Neither he nor his family is entitled to any of it. That is what OP's husband should be doing, supporting his wife in a very difficult time and not hurting the vultures to his wife's wallet. I'm so sorry you have to put up with the BS right now, OP. Your husband and ILs should be making your life easier, not harder. It sucks when you lose a parent. And it sucks more when your partner doesn't support you as you try and navigate a world that will always be missing an important person. Not the a-hole. Response 8. Not the a-hole. Their expectations are what caused the problem. For some reason, they're somehow feeling entitled to your inheritance. That is weird, unless you have discussed it with either hubby or in-laws, which it doesn't sound like you did. The family was wrong to place blame on anyone other than the people who felt entitled to your inheritance. Maybe take a little bit of your money and spend a weekend alone in a nice hotel near the beach, lake, mountains, or wherever you feel comfortable, and do some soul searching. I personally would not want to continue associating with people who feel entitled and then blame you for their own erroneous expectations. But that is just me. Also, read this free ebook. You may be surprised by what you learn. Response 9. Don't combine your inheritance dollars in a shared account with your spouse. Keep it separate so it remains your sole asset. This is so insensitive of your husband, like dancing on your mother's grave. You are not the a-hole, but your husband is a red flag. Reply 1 this. I found this out the hard way. My ex went through my inheritance from my grandma in 6 fucking weeks. Granted, it wasn't very much, only around $9,000 after I bought myself a used van, but still, he wonders why he's my ex. Reply 2. It's good advice, but these things can be pressured and tricky. Easy to say in a Reddit comment, but much harder to enforce IRL. When the credit card debt is high 1 month, or you need a new AC unit replaced, or a vehicle accident malfunction requires a surprise expense, and there's not enough money in the share's checking account to cover, then it takes tremendous steadfastness to somehow let the share's debt pile up instead of just giving money to your pleading spouse. It will cause a divide of everything being my money versus your money, and it will stress the marriage. Best of luck to OP. She's in a tough situation now. I don't envy her, losing her mom and now facing marital problems. Reply 3. This is a great point that most of these, presumably unmarried commenters don't get. When you're married and you have a mortgage to pay or need a new car, it's not realistic to sit on a pile of money from grandma and say, but this is my money. I'm not spending it on something I share with you. If the husband asked her to pay off the house with the inheritance, I'd understand. But treating his parents to dinner? That's just silly. Reply 4. I 100% agree. If you don't want to share finances, don't get married. If that isn't appealing, don't sign up for a lifelong partnership. That's literally what marriage is, a contract for your entire life. No one is making you sign, so think long and hard before you do. Reply 5. I 100% agree. Obviously, OP is not the a-hole, but I'm kind of astounded at how many people think married couples have separate finances. My husband and I share everything. If either one of us inherited money, we would have a conversation about how to spend/save it for the family. OP's husband is an a-hole for assuming OP would pay for dinner, but not necessarily the a-hole for having an opinion about what to do with the money. Kinda sounds like their marriage isn't great to begin with, if they're not communicating enough to avoid this issue. Response 10. They act like you won the lottery and do not bury your mother. I'm sorry for your loss. Reply 1. And even if she had won the lottery, her money is still none of their fucking business. Not the a-hole OP. I'm so sorry for your loss and for this shite family you've married into. They probably seemed nice to begin with, but I would take this as them showing their true colors and be prepared. As others have said, get some legal advice and don't give your husband any kind of access to that money. Your mother wanted you to have it. Him being your husband has no bearing on that. Response 11. Not the a-hole. Make sure you secure your inheritance so the jackass and his family can't get to it. They couldn't help when your mom was sick, but they are perfectly fine spending the money she left you? F that noise. Does your husband have any redeeming qualities? Because he just offered up your money to treat his circus of idiots. Not the a-hole. Totally not the asshole. You are not there at M. Reply 1. Even beyond the incredibly sad and terrible series of events that led to this moment, if you date or are married to someone and they get a big familial inheritance windfall, that is not your money. Don't ever touch that money. Don't talk about it, bring it up, or start to act rich. Give advice about how to spend it, only if they ask you specifically to do so. But otherwise, don't covet it. I mean, shit, don't even think about it. Pretend like that money doesn't even exist. Not only because you'd be a huge asshole for already making plans for someone else's money that their parents worked a lifetime to give them, but also because once that lifestyle creep kicks in, you can't really ever happily go back to how you lived before. And if you go from cooking every meal at home and shopping sales to dining out 5x a week and going on nice vacations and renting a more expensive apartment, you can blow through $250,000 in 5 years easy, as if you'd lit a giant pile of cash on fire, and then it's just gone. No future down payment, no emergency or college fund or security, no responsible long-term investments that will turn that nest egg into retirement money in 20 years. People are whack. Response 12. Not the a-hole. I recently inherited a good amount of money from my mom. You inherited the money, not him. He shouldn't tell you what you should do with the money that was gifted, in an unfortunate event that is, to you. My husband's mom joked about paying for dinner out of my inheritance pocket. The mother of your husband is TA for making this comment. She should know better. Not just that, but the fact that your husband enables this is almost disgusting. He got back at 3 a.m. yelling at me, saying I was pathetic. This might be rude, but the fact he is yelling at you, telling you what to do with money, and enabling his mother to make a comment, inheritance pocket, makes me think that he is out on that money and that he's the one that's pathetic here. Reply 1. I'd be thinking in my head to my hubby, when your mom dies and leaves you your inheritance, I'm sure you won't mind me getting all excited about the lucky payday when I joyfully tell you what to spend it on, which would be me. I'm so sorry for your painful loss. I hope there are redeemable qualities in your husband, and they would have to be so special, as he and your in-laws sound like disgusting people. Only you know if he's worth it. I would think seriously about counseling either together, separately, or both. Reply 2. It's your money, not your husband's. It is yours to do with as you wish. No one is entitled to your inheritance, and it certainly does not make you an ATM. First, it will be just pay for this and just pay for that. Oh, just pay for this celebratory dinner, and oh, pay for so-and-so's birthday party. Oh, since you have so much money, you should pay for our trip. And the list goes on. Your husband is, I don't have words. Stand your ground. You don't owe anyone anything. Response 13, not the a-hole. And maybe you should keep on walking. That inheritance is yours, not your husband's or his family's. He in particular seems uncomfortable that you have the freedom of your own money to spend. Don't let him control you. Reply 1. Call me old-fashioned, but when you get married, aren't you committing to shared finances? In my mind, no couple with separate finances will ever stay together. If you can't trust them enough to handle money, why in the world would you marry them in the first place? Reply 2. I don't know why you're being downvoted. This has been my thoughts the entire time. It doesn't stop the family from being assholes. Instead of acknowledging her mother passed, they just focus on money and make demands. That is really shitty behavior. But every single comment seems to be about how her money is hers and his money is his. Different bank accounts and everything. I literally cannot comprehend that. It just doesn't make sense to me. In a marriage, there is no your money and my money. There is our money. Just using the money without talking about it is not okay. But if you can't trust your partner with money, then the prerequisites for a working marriage are just not there. You should be able to always trust your partner 100%. Or one partner is not financially responsible and both partners agree that the other person does all the money stuff. That's okay too, but that's not the case here. Reply 3. It would be old-fashioned if you said the man gets the final say on finances, but also, how a married couple handles finances can vary. But whatever the arrangements, there needs to be mutual trust, understanding, compromise, and communication. Definitely, an area OP relationship could use some work/counseling. I could give the benefit of the doubt to the husband and guess that they both feel uncomfortable discussing finances. Maybe because he feels inadequate as a non-breadwinner man, and maybe she fears reinforcing his inadequacies just by bringing it up. Counseling would be a good way to spend the inheritance. Response 14. Not the a-hole. It's not their money. They don't get a say in how you choose to spend it. Your husband should be embarrassed that his family is entitled freeloaders. Reply 1. He probably told them she was paying. Reply 2. The mother-in-law commenting on her inheritance pocket is unbelievably not okay, even if the husband said she was paying. Reply 3. It's disgusting, appalling, entitled behavior. Good on OP for having the presence of mind to get up and walk out. Her spouse and in-laws are acting like they all won the lottery. I'm so sorry about your mom, OP. From your comment below, I think you're giving thought to if you want to stay in the marriage. Make sure you know the laws on inheritance and net family property. Not the a-hole. Response 15. Not the a-hole. And absolutely keep the money in a separate account and do not conflate it with your marital money or household expenses. Definitely get legal advice before spending a cent of it. Source: I put part of an inheritance into a renovation of our family home, which instantly became 50% owned by my husband, which he legally could keep in our divorce. Reply 1. Absolutely, Nancy. Talk to a lawyer about your rights. Even in those states in the US where married couples' assets are considered a 50-50 proposition in case of divorce, individual inheritances such as yours are considered outside of those assets as long as they are not mixed with general family funds. Reply 2. I'd use the term commingle over conflate. Same idea. Even in a community property states, there are ways to keep some funds separate. Postnuptial agreements are also a thing. Regardless, OP, visit a lawyer who specializes in estate planning. Keep your money in a way that lets you direct how you use it, even if that use is on your husband ILs, not the a-hole. Your husband and his family do suck though, as they seem to view you now only as an ATM. Consider that in your relationship, because it seems like some major red flags. Response 16, not the a-hole. Lock that money up far away from your greedy husband and in-laws. They have no rights to your inheritance. You might want to remind them that you only have the money because someone you love died. You didn't win the lottery. Make it clear to your husband that you need to live off your current income, and that's it. Response 17. He's ignoring the part where they lied to get you there and then planned to use you. He's also ignoring the fact that he's been trying to spend your inheritance since you got it. Keep the money separate. It will save you in the divorce, and the divorce is coming. Reply 1. If you want to know this $1 fortune teller prediction, within 5 years, he's going to build up wildly unjustified resentment over money matters until he cheats on her with someone under 30 while arguing at OP behavior that erodes the relationship, particularly how she doesn't respect him. Response 18, not the a-hole. Unless you're invited to a dinner where the host has specifically made it clear that they are paying, a good rule is if you can't afford it, don't go. Nobody worth having in your life will judge you, and if it's a small group, you'll probably end up going somewhere that's in everyone's comfort zone. It's not like you're picking restaurants that you know your husband's family can't afford. Your husband and his family all sound like gold diggers. Please don't waste your time feeling remotely bad about this, and honestly, I would seek legal advice, as I guarantee your husband will find a way to come after your cash.